You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means it is Monday. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern. That means the Options Insider Radio Network is back in your life here once again, kicking off a fun-filled week of content with your bi-weekly options extravaganza known as the Option Block, what the cool kids call the old OB. Of course, you guys can enjoy it pretty much however you like. If you love it on demand, it's there for you on pretty much every platform under the sun. If you like what you hear, keep rating and reviewing. If you like to engage live a little bit more immediately, you got the plus for you. If you want to go hardcore into the paint, then we've got the secret club out there for you. Get all the live plus all the other pro shows and everything else that we do out there. You get bumped to the front of the list for all of our Q's and A's and all the other fun stuff that we do. You know where to go. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to check it all out. And of course, wherever you listen live after the fact, keep sending in those questions. We do love to hear from you folks. And again, we heard from you. You guys want our polls back, so they are back. Another one raging right now, went live right before the show. We'll also pay off the one from last week. A little bit interesting results on that one. We'll get to that a little bit later. But first, it is the beginning of our broadcast week, listeners. You know what that means. It is time to dial the Wayback Machine back to the 80s to guess that 80s wrestler's entrance music. Today's going to be a fun one, so let's get to it. Can you name that 80s wrestler via his entrance music? All right, that's a good one. This what's a fun one because it's challenging, because this is one of those guys people know from the 80s. I maybe not quite in the pantheon of like the Hogans and the Andres and maybe the Machos up there. But if he's not, he's like right below it. He's a pretty well-known guy from the 80s. But his entrance music, not so much. It's not really, oh, you hear that and you instantly know exactly who that is. He's one of these guys, he's had multiple variations, multiple iterations on that music. We went back to the well, to the kind of the source for his kind of earliest WWF entrance music, but there has been some new iterations to that along the way. This guy, I do believe, still poking around. You know, I think he's doing actually maybe some managing or something these days. I don't know, but interesting stuff nonetheless. And a guy who I won't even say that hint yet, because if I give this hint, it may give it away. Let's go around the horn first, though. Let's go back out. Let's mix it up. Let's go out deep into the heart of Texas. Give him a chance to catch up if he can, because this is a challenging one. We're going to say hi to the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian. First, Mr. Meatball, welcome back to the program. And give us an update. How does our friend, the Rock Lobster, how's he faring these days, sir?
He's back at work, so he's feeling pretty well. He actually offered to do the show. I told him no, take it easy. You don't want to hear him coughing anyway. He's still coughing a bit, but he feels all right.
Well, that's good.
And so, yeah, no worries. He's going to be all right, folks. He'll be back. He'll be on the show on Thursday.
We'll have proof of life for the Rock Lobster soon enough. And now, I have delayed long enough, sir. Can you name that 80s wrestler, sir?
You know, I was not sure who that was. I got to be honest, but I want to give a try. And, you know, the next leg down after Hogan and Macho Man and Ric Flair, you're talking the Ted DiBiase's of the world. So I'm going to guess that is an early rendition of the $1 Million Man.
That is an awesome guess. Ted DiBiase, I actually saw him last night. He actually is alive and doing stuff right now. And I didn't see him in person, but he's doing wrestling content as we speak. He is involved. There's a $1 Million Man fight going on in WWE right now. So he's back in that. So I saw him. We did him like, I think a month or so ago. When I first saw him, like Ted DiBiase. So we did do him recently. That's a good guess. Cause Ted DiBiase, you're right. That's kind of the strata I'm going for. Ted DiBiase. But maybe even a little bit more. Maybe. I think most people, you could argue some people don't know Ted DiBiase. I think most people, even if you're tangentially familiar with wrestling, they hear this name, they're like, oh, yeah, I know that guy. So good guess, but not him. We've gotten out to the land of St. Charles. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir. First, welcome back to the program. Glad to see that you are plague-free out there. And then B, sir, if possible, can you name that 80s wrestler?
Great to be here as always. I'm torn between two of them right now. I'm torn between Jimmy Snuka and Jake the Snake Roberts. So I'm gonna go with Superfly Jimmy Snuka.
Oh, you had it. You had it. It is Jake the Snake Roberts. Yes. Oh, you had it. I was about to say, because that's why he's the champ, because he pulled it. But you took a detour at the last second. That was you were almost there, sir. You were like 98% of the way there. I was about to say, if you guys didn't get it, I was going to say this guy's famous, but his move is probably even more famous than him. It's become just a staple of wrestling. His finisher, the DDT. Every single wrestler from throughout the ages now does a DDT. It's just part of the pantheon. So he, as famous as he is, his move, and people know when they hear Jake the Snake, like, oh yeah, I know that guy. But his music, yeah, it's weird. All these iconic 80s wrestlers, their music was kind of but the wrestler, when he came out with the Snake, with Damien, all that stuff, you knew him. So good stuff. He's still floating around. By the way, I heard him do an interview like a couple of years ago. I forgot what might have been like the Rogan shows. I tuned in to say, oh, Jake the Snake's talking. I got to hear what the hell this guy's been up to. He does perhaps the best Macho Man impersonation I've ever heard. He did it for a while. I thought you're listening to it's uncanny. So you owe it to yourself to seek out Jake the Snake doing a Macho Man impersonation. It is eerie. It is eerie how much he signed. He would know. He wrestled with the guy at the famous match where he had the snake bite him and stuff. And listen to his story, by the way, of what Macho Man made him go through in order to do that match. That guy's had a pretty crazy life, Jake the Snake. Pretty messed up life, but like most of these wrestlers did. But intriguing. Check out the impression. As we keep on rolling, I could talk Jake the Snake for hours, but we got to keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Trading Block portion of the show. We break down what the heck is trading, what is lighting up our screens to kick off this trading week. And it seemed like last week the market had a hard time till really the end, really deciding what direction it wanted to move in. It had a lot of tumult, a lot of topsy-turviness, shall we say, last week, which actually leads to our question of the week this week. We were debating this a lot last week, so I thought we'd put it out to you this week. We said we've seen a lot of turbulence in the market recently. What do you feel is the main driver of this latest round of volatility? And if you don't see your answer, as always, send us your you can DM it as well what your answer is. Gave you 4 choices. These are the ones everyone's chewing over right now. Of course, the Delta variant, Afghanistan, all the turmoil going on over there. Concerns over the Fed tapering or overall market valuation concerns. What do you think is driving this dance right now? Hit us up. Let us know. Just went live before the show. It'll be live pretty much throughout the week. If you're listening live, head on over to @options. If you're listening after the fact, head on over to @options on Twitter. Make your voice heard. It will be there throughout the week. I'm curious to see what you folks have to say on this subject because it is a bit of a contentious one. You know what's not contentious today, though, is the market. It's not struggling to decide what it wants to be today, listeners. It's firmly in the green. Pretty much every major indice up 1%, if not more. S&P is kind of the laggard, only up about 1.1%. Actually, I take it back. The Dow is the laggard, up about 0.9%. And then the NASDAQ up about 1.6% on the day. Of course, all that green on the screen means some red on the vol screen. VIX, after flirting with the 20-odd handle last week, just a crazy time last week as we saw these crazy sell-offs over the course of the past week. Let's see, how high did we get? We got about 23 and change, 23.15 or so, seems like. After having all that madness, we are back down now to a 17 handle, pretty much almost exactly coming into showtime. So that put us at off about 3.5 points from last show. So all the people who were kind of wringing their hands about the vol erosion out there in the UVXY, VXX, you're getting it in spades today, listeners, all coming racing back in. VVIX, which is the volatility of volatility, at a 114. By the way, everyone out there who maybe struggled with our question of the week last week, I give you that number for a reason when we start the show. Just think about it as we keep on rolling. It's kind of a bit of a spoiler whenever I toss that one out there. All right, VXX, it's at about a 26.5, still up a wee bit, but actually not looking too good right now. It's at about 26.5. Let's see, that puts it down. How much were we on our last show? It puts it down, about almost 3 points, about 2 3/4 points from this time last week. And then we have Vol Q at about a 15.5 coming into showtime. Vol Q, of course, the at the money vol of the NASDAQ 100. That's down about 3 1/4 points from this time last week. So a lot of vol erosion going on. I got some UVXY downside myself on the offer. We'll see if they take my offer up throughout the show. We shall see. Let's go on out now. He was very close. He was 50-50 at one point, and he seemed like he was leaning towards Jake the Snake. And then at last minute, listeners, he veered away into the Jimmy the Superfly snooker land. And we all know what happens when you go down that road. So let's go back out to Uncle Mike. They'll give him credit for at least a college try out there. Mr. Uncle Mike, if you have any enduring memories of Jake the Snake and Damien, have at it. And then B, more importantly, sir, what is lighting up your tape out there today?
I think so. Yeah, Jake the Snake, he had a good thing going in the '80s with Damien and the DDT, and I think one of my favorite ones was just the how comedic it was when Jimmy Hart tried to ban the DDT. And he was handing out T-shirts saying "Ban the DDT, ban the DDT," and he'd always preface it with "It's not because the honky tonk man's scared of it. We need to ban the DDT. It's not because the honky tonk man's scared of it." And then, of course, Gorilla Monsoon would say, "Well, it's of course because the honky tonk man is scared of it." So that was probably one of my favorite ones that had to do with Jake the Snake Robber.
We got to get Gorilla Monsoon's entrance music on.
Oh God, that's like pre-WWF. He was like, he was way in the early days of wrestling.
That guy was amazing.
But Mr. Uncle Mike, would you concur with me that Jake the Snake's maybe not quite in like that top pantheon, but like right below it, sir? Or maybe you disagree. Maybe you think he's up there.
No, I would say he's definitely second tiered Hogan and Andre the Giant and those guys in that day. That's for sure.
Indeed. Again, we could discuss this all day, sir. But what is lighting up your tape?
Well, besides Jake the Snake Roberts, I think the big story today right now is the fact that the FDA approved the Pfizer vaccine. So I think there's a lot of excitement going on and buzz in the air about that. But what does that ultimately mean? I think what it means is that there can be more mandates, because let's say that before the FDA approval, when this was just considered an emergency approval, then if a company says you have to get this shot, and if you don't get it, you're fired. Well, okay, someone gets the shot, and then there's some type of side effect or there's something bad that happens to it. The company mandated something that was considered not totally approved by the FDA, and then the company's going to be liable for that. Well, now it's approved by the FDA, and so now the FDA is going to be more liable for it, or they're going to take on that liability. And granted, there's always ways that if you don't, ultimately, this is America. If you don't want to do it, you're not going to have to do it. You can claim a religious exemption. You can claim all sorts of things, but it's a lot harder to do now if that's the case. And so what's going to happen, I think the theory of what will happen is there'll be more vaccine mandates within the workspace and within different things happening for where we're going with it. And I think just an excitement of more people are vaccinated, so the spread will be less and we can have more economic activity. One thing that I find interesting about this is that in Silicon Valley, they had said that we are going to make the vaccine totally mandatory in late September or in October or something along those lines. And they said that last summer. I'll put on my tinfoil hat here for a second. Do you think maybe that they knew that this was going to happen? Not sure, but it kind of makes me scratch my head a little bit that maybe some of the big companies might be in and know some type of inside information that it's going to happen. And keep in mind, too, there was also the FDA was even saying it was their goal to get approved by Labor Day. They did that. So that's kind of what's going on in the vaccine world. Other things that are lighting up my tape right now, bonds are relatively lifeless at this point in time. Just nothing's happening on them, almost perfectly flat on the day. And then finally, the next thing that is moving a little bit, we have a little bit of a bid in my beloved silver. So we are up 55 cents on the day there. And in terms of the various sectors that are happening, energy is definitely up a fairly significant amount today, with XLE up close to 3% on the day. So we're definitely getting a lot of, or actually, I'm sorry, over 3% on the day. So we're definitely getting a lot of movement there. We have a lot of movement in that stage. We also have a good amount of movement in technology. So this is still not quite what I would call totally broad-based, but it's getting to look a lot more like that, if you will, for the rally in the market today. I think that with where we're going to go with this now is that we are at all-time highs today. I know I didn't say my thing, but it's not exciting for me to say my thing every day, so I'm not going to say it. But I do think as we are going to more all-time highs, if we're going to maintain this these levels with which the market's going right now, we are going to have to get more of a broad base. And ultimately, I think that we will, just because of the fact that even if times aren't so good and earnings aren't the greatest for a while, let's be honest with ourselves, inflation's back. We've had almost no inflation, it feels like, for 10 years. I was just working with a client who retired recently, and we started working together literally 10 years ago. And about a year ago, I was kind of looking at prices and where things were, and I'm like, so is this income of what we projected, do you need all this extra income now that you're retired? And he's like, I'm living off almost the exact same amount of money that I was living off of 10 years ago. Now, of course, this year, about a year later, when the government hands out trillions of dollars of free money and then unprecedented rates, even for our government, things are different. Prices are going up, and we're getting inflated pretty quickly. So I think with that being said, I think ultimately stock prices will continue to increase, because that's going to be one thing that's working for the bulls in the market. And I think real estate prices will increase as well, just because of the fact that this time around, incomes appear to be rising along with the inflation, which they did not in the real estate bubble that we lived through a little over 10 years ago. So that's what I'm seeing in the markets today. And I will pass it off to the Seabass man.
Mr. Meatball, same question for you, sir. First off, if you have any enduring memories of Jake the Snake and or Damien, have at it, sir. And then B, what is lighting up your tape out there in this bit of vol annihilation, sir?
Yeah, I was watching a documentary about the Ultimate Warrior and his ultimate dying. And I don't know if people know this, how much Jake the Snake hated the Ultimate Warrior.
I think a lot of people hated that guy towards the end.
He was going to beat the crud out of him. And they did end up making up right before he passed away. But that was Jake the Snake was pretty darn awesome. He's probably one of the better interviewers and more interesting personalities off the stage. He's actually more interesting off the stage than he is on. And yes, he was always one of the guys that would show up on like the Saturday morning and like, DDT some jabroni and then some jobber and then drop the snake on him and leave. It was always one of my favorite.
That's all you needed, right? You need a DDT and the snake and you're good. Your day was good.
And the short arm, don't forget about the short arm clothesline. He had that too. And like, some of the times against these jobbers, he just did not seem like he cared to be there, which I don't blame him. Yeah, we've got ourselves a pretty darn bullish day. What's interesting is that the volatility on the way up has been bigger than the volatility on the way down. We've been seeing much stronger moves up than down. Mike kind of hit all the major themes. I do think that if you believe in buy the rumor, sell the news, then Pfizer is probably topping out today and might be an interesting short position. I'm looking at the call volume in Apple. Uncle Mike is all over Apple today. The 150 calls in Apple have already traded 102,000 times. My understanding is 95,000 of those are Mike TOSAW himself. There's also, between the 149s, the 150s, the 152.5s, and the 155s, we still have 3 more hours in the day, and they've already traded 250,000 contracts. These expire on Friday, folks. So the Apple volume exploding, AMD way up. Looks like it's going to make a run here. And just, kind of a meme stock day. Even Robinhood is up today, if to put things into perspective. And yes, energy looking higher despite the government coming on and saying, hey, we're going to, we're going to release 20 million barrels of oil or something like that, 20,000 barrels of oil. That is not seeming to affect very much right now.
Unleashing the strategic reserves. Who cares? Who cares about such things in the world of crude oil? You're right. Shrugging all that off. We got Nichols in the live chat saying he's here. The party can start now. Well, yes, we were waiting for you the whole time. It was all just pre-show until you got here. Nichols, let's look and see what's lighting it up out here in this pre-show period. And in spite of the fact that VIX and Vol giving up a lot of the ghosts today, not a lot of paper in VIX land, only 151,000 contracts on the tape right now. The ADV is also trending in the wrong direction, below 400K again, down to 392,000. But it is a different story when you get out to the broad indices. Those are lighting it up. SPY already crossing the 3 million threshold a few minutes ago. The ADV is about 3.85 million out there. So it's probably going to hit that today. The S, again, also with a 1 million tag on it already, 1.05 million to be precise. It's kind of rare that the S is already putting up 1 million contracts by right now. So things are afoot out there in the S. The ADV in the S is only about 1.25 million. And yes, the NASDAQ also with an M, trifecta of millions here in our broad index level. 1.15 million contracts going up right now for the NASDAQ. The ADV is about 1.25 million. So pretty much all of these indices are going to hit their ADV today. It's pretty certain. And small caps also catching the fire. Not quite on the 1M level, but about half that, 450,000 contracts on the tape right now for IWM. The ADV is 572. So it's probably going to hit that today as well. Let's get on out to the single names, see where the crazy action is out there today. Pretty active day out there as well. Cost you 234,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. That gets you to Ford. I'm hearing their new mini pickup gathering a lot of steam, getting a lot of attention out there. So it's not all lightning all the time. There's some other stuff. I think it starts around 20 grand or something like that. So people are pretty pumped for that, it sounds like. And that's generating 234,000 contracts. Let's see what our friend Ford. We're just talking about them on oddities and how they have failed repeatedly to make all these attempts that people have put on the 20 strike. And today up a nice 9 cents or 12.66. So there's still a long way from that 20 handle that people have been just piling into en masse for the better part of the last couple of months, but a decent day nonetheless, and certainly a lot of paper for them today. Number 9, Microsoft. Microsoft's kind of glued at this number 9 spot. It doesn't seem to want to budge, but it's hanging out there. It does enough to hang there. It takes a lot to break into the top 10 these days, and Softy can do it yet again. 259,000 contracts for number 9. Number 8, Palantir, another one that's kind of hanging out in the top 10 most days these days. 338,000 contracts for Palantir. Number 7, number 6, we're back to the other symbol twins. AMC first at 372,000 for number 7. The number 6, AMD, right behind it with 411,000. We go back out to Baba land, 563,000 contracts at number 5. Number 4, it's Tesla. Yes, all the way down at number 4, listeners. You know something intriguing is afoot when Tesla's at number 4. 698,000 contracts. Number 3, we were just talking about them and how much freaking paper they are doing. Apple, in terms of, it seems like all anybody wants to touch an Apple right now, as Mr. Meatball was just alluding to, is weekly, pretty much at the money or near out of the money or slightly in the money calls. Again, 102,000 of the AUG 150s right now, 60,000 of the AUG 152 halves, 50,000 of the AUG 155s. Then you throw in 43,000 of the AUG 149s and 23,000 of the AUG 148s right now. Listen, that's pretty much almost the entirety of Apple's trading day out there. Is pretty much all and all these going away this Friday, listeners. So someone's just got to be in their bonnet for very, very near dated call paper in Apple, and they're not playing around. Again, you add up these strikes, you're getting well over 250,000 contracts just in those. And Apple today, as a total, has only done pretty much exactly 750,000 contracts. So yeah, you're talking a lot of paper just in these pretty much at the money and slightly out of the money and slightly in the money calls here going out this week. What is afoot out there? That's intriguing stuff. Number 2, though, what could topple Apple and Tesla? It's NVIDIA. 820,000 contracts for number 2. You could probably maybe guess what number 1 is, given what Uncle Mike was talking about earlier and what the big news of the day is. Yes, it's Pfizer, closing in on 1 million contracts right now. 939,000 contracts. Pfizer, by the way, only up 1.25% or about 2.5%. Given the amount of paper you're seeing going up, you might assume it was more. It looks like intraday they got up as high as, looks like about $1 higher. They're at about 49.90 or so. They got up to about 50.90 or so. So not quite maybe the price bonanza you might think, but certainly a paper bonanza out there. Let's see if we got any paper bonanzas in store for us this week on the earnings front. All of you asking for earnings updates, you'll be happy to know. Hitting right before showtime, hot off the presses from our friends out there in Orat's land. Another interesting week out there. Let's see, tomorrow we got Best Buy and Intuit and Nordstrom. Wednesday we got Dick's Sporting Goods, Salesforce, and Snowflake. They were a hot IPO for a hot minute. Seems like they have tapered off a little bit. We'll see. We'll see if that translates into some volume and box. Thursday, Uncle Mike's favorite day of the earnings cycle. Got Dollar General and Dollar Tree, his 2 favorite places to shop, as well as Abercrombie and Fitch, Peloton. See what's going on with them. MRVL, Gap, HP, and Dell. And then Friday, you got Big Lots. So let's see what we've got going on here. Not much popping off today before the bell, but we do have updated earnings season. The season right now hanging out at about 84%. So looking pretty good. We had Matt on the Vol View show on Friday. So if you missed that, listeners, check that out because he breaks down all these numbers. These are his numbers, is his data at the end of the day, obviously. So check out that one if you haven't for a good breakdown. Let's see what's coming up this week that we've got here. We've got tomorrow before the bell, Best Buy. Here we go. They are $112.63. They're pricing in $6.50. In the past, they moved $7. So that so far seems like pretty much what we've come to expect in the pandemic era. Less vol every cycle. Intuit on the 24th after the bell as well. $5.45 and about a half. So pretty rich in Intuit land. They're trading, let's see, they're pricing in $18.30. In the past, they moved about $15.25. So $3 more juice in Intuit land. That's intriguing and perhaps unexpected. Snowflake, August 25th after the bell. $2.66 and about 2/3 is where they were trading. $21.64 is their straddle. In the past, they've moved, my goodness, $14.91. So a wee bit extra vol in Snowflake. Now, again, the caveat, this is an IPO, so we don't have a lot of data to go with here. So that's probably why those numbers are a little bit wonky. But still, that's extra juice, a lot of extra juice. So perhaps that bears watching there as well. Dell, 98.5 is where they were going into this report. They were pricing in $4.61. In the past, they've moved $3.62. So nearly $1 worth of extra juice in DELL as well. Intriguing. Hewlett Packard after the bell on the 26th. 28.25 is where they were. They're pricing in $1.50. In the past, they've moved about $1.50. So not a lot of action there. MRVL, about $60 going into this report. They're pricing in $3.50. In the past, they've moved $3. So dare I say it, Matt was kind of cautiously optimistic that maybe we are going to start seeing a little more vol going forward. And certainly some of these names reporting this week seem to be backing that up. They are pricing in a little bit more juice, which, if past is prologue, is a huge disaster waiting for them. But we shall see. Big Lots, let's see if they're doing the same. Let's see. $56, pretty much even. They're popping off on the 27th, listeners. They're pricing in they're pricing in $401. In the past, they moved $580. So they got the memo out there. They cut their vol by pretty much about a third. So interesting, though. They are seeing more names than I would expect, pricing in extra juice, some of them substantially more. Will this work out for them? We shall find out soon, listeners, as we keep on rolling into the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we break down the weird, the wild, the wondrous, and we unleash the eye of Sauron upon the world and see where it fixes its gaze on. If I sound a little distracted, listeners, it's because I'm looking at some of this paper. Our eye of Sauron has come back to us first, and I think the technical term is holy crap. So let's get into it. I always love when we find weirdo names to sink our teeth into, names that are kind of off the beaten path a little bit. We love our Apples and our Facebooks and everything else, but a little bit farther afield is always fun. And then B, one of these ones that are just so ridiculously sizable, you kind of have to just kind of scratch your head and say, what perhaps is afoot out there? So we are going out today, listeners, to a newcomer to the Odd Block. This is KE Holdings, Inc., ticker symbol BEKE, B-E-K-E. This is an ADR out of China. I do believe they operate housing platforms in and around China. So we know everything Chinese related has been a little volatile of late, shall we say. BEKE, by the way, if you're wondering, trading $16.32, up about $1.33 out there. Let's look really quickly what this thing has been up to over the course of the past year. Oh, yeah, it's had some movement. A year ago, it was trading $46, pretty much even. So it's come off a little bit. About 2/3 over the course of the past year. And it's bounced around. It's been pretty volatile, but looks like it had its apex around, November of last year. Got up to almost $80, 79 and about a half. Then it kind of sold off again, bounced around in the 60s range, got up to 73 in January, sold off again into the 60s in February, rallied up again to almost that 80 level in February again, and then sold off hard again. By March, was trading $47. Then rallied again in late March to 67. So this thing has had quite some volatility of late. And then ever since, it's kind of been a long, slow downward trajectory. Looks like it paused for a bit in June at 52, and then it started selling off pretty hard again. By July, early July, it was trading 38. Then it had an aggressive sell-off in late July from about 38 down to $24 on July 26th. And it's been trending south steadily since then to where it is right now, $16.32. So given the portion of this chart, the latter portion in particular, that has trended downward aggressively, I'm going to probably wager it's the puts. And yeah, that does seem to be the case. And man, there are some puts trading out here today. By the way, if you're curious, BEKE does probably a little bit more paper than you might assume. The ADV is about 32,000 out there now, which is pretty high. I have to imagine that's probably inflated over the course of the last couple of months with some downside paper we've seen out there. But we are seeing some paper today. In particular, what caught our eye was just a ridiculous block of 124,784 of the September 10 puts going up for 22 cents. Again, 124,784 times. The market was actually 20 cents at 30. So they got them 2 cents off the bid. So if you're doing that much paper, that's actually moderately impressive. The implied vol, if you're wondering, is about close to a 150, about a 148 on these bad boys. So when we saw that, we said, obviously, perhaps something else is afoot. Let's see what else is going on out here. So we had our Eye of Sauron dig a little bit further, found a few more blocks, a 7,000 lot going up a few minutes before that. Actually, looks like about 11 minutes before that for 30 cents. So the market then was 30 cents at 35. They came in, crushed them 7,000 times. And then they came in, looks like a couple of seconds later, the market had moved 25 cents at 30 now because they were coming in for size. And they crushed them again. They actually got them off for 30 again. So that was impressive. And then they kept coming in, looks like 2,000 more before that when they were still 30-cent bid earlier for. So they got a few off at 30 cents before they crushed that bid. And then they got the rest, 124,784 done at 22 cents. So they had to go pretty much 8 cents through that bid to get all of them done. But still, given how much size they're doing, many multiples of the ADV just in one trade. That isn't that crazy. So it seems like, Mr. Meatball, all this a long way around to saying someone's drawing a heck of a sizable line in the sand here in everyone's favorite KE Holdings at the 10 strike. They're saying this far and no farther, and we're doing it for size, sir. Again, about 100 and let's see how many total coming up. Total already of 143,000 of these puts had gone up, sir.
Yeah, they're not messing around. This is 100% a line in the sand. Put sale, looking to get some yield, making 22 cents on $10 and or willing to take delivery if this thing drops. So, yeah, it is 100% a line in the sand. But in pretty decent education, they're now 20 a quarter. So, just really, at this point, a penny off the bid. Not terrible. Or a penny off the mid. Not bad.
Yeah, the fact that they got that many done for that price. That's kind of what struck me almost more than the size was the execute. I'm guessing Tubby was behind these. What do you think? This has the deft hand of Tubby about it. What do you think?
I bet you it was. I could totally see him doing this.
Dancing through those goalposts there, just like a nimble little ninja, Mr. Tubby, which if you've ever seen him, nimbleness is not the first thing that comes to mind. But in execution, he's a very nimble fellow. We'll come back to these. We'll see how these nimble puts, how they fare. We won't have to wait long for these. These are pretty sizable. What do you think? You like this line in the sand, listeners? You like this? You like the execution? You think they could have done better? You think you would have preferred something else? Give us your thoughts on these as we keep on rolling. It's kind of the theme of today, Mr. Meatball. We got pretty sizable names from out of nowhere pretty much here on the show. Next up, we got another one we haven't talked about in quite some time. We got Ballard Power Systems, Inc., ticker symbol BLDP, BLDP. Trading right now $16.08, off about 40 cents or nearly 2.5%. This is the name that a year ago was trading $16.50, so pretty close to where it is right now. So seems like mostly a wasted year, and they had a nice run for a while there. Ballard Power Systems, they make proton exchange membrane fuel cell products out there for doing all that nascent fuel cell. This is the market that, we've been hearing rumblings about is going to be the next hot thing for decades now. And Ballard Power Systems right in the middle of it. Looks like they had a nice pop. Some folks were buying what they were selling back in, beginning of this year. Because in February, remember, this is kind of hot on the heels of meme stock palooza. Everything was kind of racing to the sun. And this thing went from about $18.50 in December all the way up to $42.25 in February 8th of this year. And that was kind of its apex for the year. And then this one came crashing down, and it came crashing down hard. I say it was February 8th. It was about $42.25. By February 10th, it was $35.50. By February 18th, it was back to $30. By March 8th, it was trading $21 again. So this thing, it's very short-lived run at the top there. And then by May of this year was below where it is right now. Actually sold off. The 52-week low on this is $12.68. So this thing got crushed a bit. It was bouncing around the low 14s levels in May till kind of hovering to where it is right now at $16.10. So kind of been, had a nice pop in the middle of the year, but other than that, kind of a whole lot of nothing here, and certainly a wasted year if you bought and held, I should say. Ballard Power Systems. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found. Looks like yet again, Mr. Meatball, kind of a sleepy name and coming to life today with some pretty sizable line in the sand puts. This time we got the SEP 13 put, so $3 out of the money, going up 26,100 times. Again, pretty much right off the bid. These things were a dime at 20 cents. They got 26,100 off for 11 cents. So not quite as impressive as our friend before, but at least they didn't have to trade through the bid, which is always nice out there. This is, let's see, that's about a 56 vol. If you're wondering, frame of reference, this name does about 3,900 contracts a day. So 26,000, that's a bit. That's a lot for a name like this. Let's see, there are no earnings in this cycle. The next earnings announcement is in November. So this is not an earnings play. This is just a straight up line in the sand. Mr. Meatball, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess you maybe like this one a little bit less. I know you're not a huge fan of dime, 11 cent puts, let alone doing it for 26,000 times, sir.
Yeah, this is not one of my favorite plays. I get what they're doing. They're trying to get a little bit of yield, but I just feel like this is, it's not worth the risk unless you really want to own the stock.
I'm guessing he might. Mr. Unlimited in the chat asking, did BEKE make the odd block? Yes, it did. We just did it. Where were you guys? You guys missing? It's a weird name. Line in the sand put day is, I guess, kind of the order of the day. If there's a theme for the odd block, that's it. Kind of outside the normal and crazy sizable line in the sand puts. We're going to keep that theme alive through our final name here, listeners. This is Trillium Therapeutics, biotech out of Canada. And you can probably guess why. Biotechs are moving around a bit today. Let's see. What's it up to today? Oh, a mere 189.5% just today. Up $11.5 to $17.62. Wow. On the year, let's see. This thing has, as you might expect, it is a biotech. It's in the name. A year ago, it was trading $10, pretty much even. Shot up by, let's see, November of this year, it was trading $20. So it had pretty much exactly doubled by November. And then it gave it almost all back up the next session or two. By the end of the next week, by December 9th, it was trading $11.78 again. So that sounds like a biotech, doubles, and then immediately gives it all right back up the next week. Then it tried to fight its way back up, got up to about 15.5 in the next couple of weeks in January 8th, then sold off again by March 8th, was trading $9.98. And then it kind of slowly drifted back down by May 26th, was trading $7.77. Then it kind of had one last flurry, rallied up to about $10.63 on June 25th. And ever since then, until today, listeners, it has been straight down. It got down to $5.86. That was pretty much where it was going into today's session. And then today, just off the rails out here. This thing looks like maybe Pfizer might be gobbling these bad boys up. Either way, a big move for them from about $6 all the way to nearly 18. So quite the run out here for Trillium. And you might be forgiven for thinking, this thing's up 75% in the year and up quite a bit just today, 189% today. Got to be calls, right? But no, what our Eye of Sauron found actually puts, once again, back to the theme of the show today, line in the sand puts for size in obscure names. We saw the SEP 15 puts. So now it makes it doubly interesting as these are puts that were deeply in the money one session ago, now are out of the money. Someone coming up and blasting away at these nearly 14,000 times for 15 cents on the bid. That's about a 54 vol. We saw another 2,000 or so going up for 20 cents. It looks like that was a little bit before it. Total of 41,000 of these things having gone up on the day. I don't know, Mr. Meatball, this one kind of makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I can think of a lot of things I might want to do when a biotech shoots up 189% in one day, selling a ton of crappy puts that could easily be $10 against me tomorrow. Maybe not one of them, sir.
Yeah, that's curious. You would expect them to be having all kinds of call volume, but no, they're unloading these puts for pennies on a. I guess the stock's never going down again. I guess that's what we're seeing in all this flow. It's stocks only go up, get any yield you can, and cash in.
It would be less concerning if this same stock hadn't almost done this exact same thing just like 8 months ago, shot straight up to the moon in November and came hard right back down like a session later. So this guy is just giving himself, or gal, whoever it was, just gave himself a ton of risk for 20 cents. Well done. Well done, sir. Yeah, this one, not my favorite. You like it? I'm not a fan. Let's see what Uncle Mike thinks as we head right on into the strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the strategy block.
Uncle Mike, we got a crazy day. Markets are rallying, balls coming in. Everyone and their mother is selling crappy puts in no-name companies. I need a dose of reassurance. I need a dose of normalcy. Uncle Mike, what do you have in store for us today?
Well, with all this volatility doing what it's doing right now, I want to talk to everyone about how I like to look at volatility when looking at individual stock. Now, first off, let me I want to address two aspects of this. The first one would be just selling a cash secured put. And then the second aspect I'd like to look at is either selling a levered put or a put spread in some way, shape, or form. So first off, let's talk about selling a cash secured put. That's a strategy to where XYZ stock's at 55. You'd love to own the stock at 50, so you sell the 50 put. If the stock goes down, you own it, and you got paid for getting into it. And if it doesn't, then you got paid for taking on that risk for whatever time frame you choose. So with that being said, if all of a sudden, let's say I really like XYZ stock, and I really want to own it, but as I'm doing my analysis over the course of a couple days, let's say, I notice that the volatility is significantly higher. Well, that should be something to make me scratch my head about. So I look into it, I dig a little bit deeper, and I determine that, you know what, this probably is still just the same stock as I had before. It just, the only difference is that there's a lot more people buying premium on it. Now, you could use that as an indicator to say, hey, I don't want anything to do with this stock. It's just too volatile right now in the option space. There's too many people buying puts on it right now, or buying premium in general. I want nothing to do with this. Or you can take the other road and say, you know what? Who cares? The option market is wrong. And I think that based on my analysis, based on my technical analysis, my fundamental analysis, and the fact that I'm cash secured and would like to own this stock for a longer period of time anyway, I have no problem keeping my short strike price the exact same as it was before I did that. So in my personal opinion, volatility, when you see it increased for cash secured put selling, I don't think it's necessarily a deal breaker on selling a put. And the reason is because my time frame would likely be longer than the time frame the volatility is going up. So in other words, let's just say in theory that volatility is super high on 1 month option premium, but you know what? I'm okay weathering the storm long past a month, and I want to get paid to buy this stock or get paid to not buy it if it goes up, then I would still sell the put. I wouldn't have any problem doing it. Now, if I use this and I look at it and I say, oh, that's why the volatility is so much higher, because there's a big announcement coming out. There's this, there's that. And you know what? I just want to wait this one out. I'm not going to get into it. So if that's the case, then I think you need to look at it from that standpoint when looking at a cash secured put. If you are levering yourself, meaning if you are, let's say you wanted to sell that same put for a $50 strike price, the cash secured put, you'd have $5,000 in your account for that specific trade. And if you wanted to lever yourself, then what you would do would be have only maybe $3,000 in your account for that trade, or $2,500, whatever the case may be. And you're essentially levering yourself 2 to 1. Or let's say that you're using that entire thing for selling a put spread and you're levering yourself in that regard. Well, if that's the case, then I personally don't like doing the trade if volatility suddenly goes higher. And the reason is that my time frame on the trade is not longer than the volatility time frame. If I'm selling a put spread, I don't want to own the stock. I just want to make money and get out, quite frankly. If I'm selling a levered put, which it's probably been years since I've ever done such a thing, but if I were to do it, I might start doing it again. You never know. But if I were to start doing something like that, I typically would not want to own the stock on margin, which is what I would be subject to if I got the stock put to me. So with that being said, I would probably avoid it if I'm levering myself for selling premium. So to sum it up, if you are doing a cash secured put, then you would have my blessing to continue to sell the put if volatility was much higher and you planned on owning the stock longer than the time frame for which volatility was higher. If you're levering yourself and you don't want to own the stock, I would avoid it. I would say avoid it like the plague, but people don't seem to want to avoid plagues anymore in this day and age. With that being said, that is the strategy block for today on Monday, and I will be sharing more about this on my blog later today. Follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW to find out more about that.
All right, and let's find out more about what you folks have on the brain, a little bit of the old mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the all-star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the mail block. This is indeed the portion of the show where you guys take the reins, your questions, your comments. We also shine a light back upon you like we have a lot these days because you guys have been asking for these polls, so they're back. Last week, we had a fun one. We asked you very simply, everyone's got vol on the brain these days, but which of these products holds the crown? Which of these has the highest 30-day at-the-money volatility? Don't cheat. Don't look it up. Use your gut. And your guts led you all to choose Bitcoin with exactly 50% of the vote coming for Bitcoin, 21.1% for VIX, 15.6% for Tesla, and then 13.3% for crude oil. And this is interesting. I know Bitcoin has a reputation for being very volatile, but if you listen to our crypto rundown program, it's had a hard time breaking triple digits of late. In fact, it's pretty much been languishing in the mid 80s. And right now it's at about an 85%. And it was, I think, at about 87% when we posted the poll this time last week. Tesla also, reputation for being very volatile. 30-day vol out there in Tesla is around a 41. I think coming into today is actually about a 40.5, a little bit higher this time last week. WTI, if you're listening to Twifo, WTI has been hanging out in the 30s for a while at about a 35% right now. Last week was a little bit higher out there as well. And then there's one number that I give you guys all at the start of pretty much every option block. I also talk about it on Vol Views on Friday as well. So you get hit with it 3 times a week. That is VVIX, a.k.a. the volatility of volatility. Now, it's not in a precise measure of 30-day vol of VIX, but it's a pretty darn close approximation. You hear me throwing that out there, that it's been over triple digits since the pandemic started, pretty much. That should give you some ballpark frame of reference that maybe VIX is the most volatile. And as of right now, the 30-day vol in VIX right now is at about a 105. So it easily beats all of these, and it was even higher this time last week. So, yeah, I give you that clue. I don't just throw these numbers out there willy-nilly, listeners. I've been giving you clues all the time about what the answer was. You just had to listen. And in this case, it was VIX. Even though I get it, people think Bitcoin's super volatile. Those people should tune into the Crypto Rundown today. In fact, we got the folks over there from Genesis, Mr. Meatball's favorites, coming on to break down exactly how we get those numbers so we can talk all those fun numbers and a whole bunch more. Coming up in almost exactly an hour. Today's, and really this week's question is, again, we mentioned at the top of the show, we said we've seen a lot of turbulence in the market right now. But what do you guys feel is the main driver of this latest round of volatility? And again, we gave you 4 choices: Delta variant, Afghanistan, Fed tapering concerns, or market valuation concerns. As always, if you don't see your vote up there or don't see your suggestion, you have a different idea, hit us up, retweet it, and share it that way, or DM us with your suggestion, and we will, if it's fun, we'll discuss it here on the show. Let's go out to the Meatball first. Mr. Meatball, what are your thoughts, first off, on all of our audience thinking Bitcoin more volatile than VIX? Clearly not listening to the show. And then B, what do you think? If you have a vote in this poll, by all means, have at it. And then B, what do you think our audience is voting for the key driver of recent market turbulence, sir?
Oh, wow. They're going COVID, maybe. And yeah, I've been listening to this poll for a while. Yeah, VIX has been a lot more volatile than Bitcoin of late. Yeah.
So you think they're going COVID? Okay. And Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you, sir. What do you think our audience is? If you have a vote in our poll, have at it. And then be more importantly, what do you think our audience is voting for?
I think COVID for the current poll, and then for the Bitcoin versus VIX, I mean, that's something that I think I would have even known that one. You guys got to listen to Vol Views more, people. Come on now.
There you go. See, we laid it all out there for you on the network, listeners. As of right now, again, this poll just went live before the show, so it's still very early voting. Get over there to @options. Right now, nearly half of you, 44.5%, are saying it's the concerns over Fed tapering. A tie for number 2 with 22% each for the Delta variant and overall market valuation concerns. Afghanistan in the rearview mirror there with 11%. But again, the game is young. We have throughout the rest of the week, so if you're listening after the fact, get over there to @options. As we go into our final segment, it is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, Mr. Uncle Mike, as our almost winner of our guessing game today, we'll start with you. What is on your radar until we gather here together on Thursday, sir?
All right, it was my mute button went crazy on me. I'd hit it and it hit unmute. It was I had some Delta variants in my mute button.
Are you trying to channel the Rock Lobster right now with your mute issues?
I must be. So I'm looking at the all-time highs. We are at those levels right now. 4,500 is the next big number that we need to cross in the SPX. Just also watching how we react to the news of the vaccine being FDA approved, and seeing if that could boost us another leg up in the marketplace. Seeing that, and I'm actually watching the VIX right now. It's so volatile, even I'm watching it. I watch it frequently, but I don't trade it like the boys over at Option Pit do. But those are the things with which I'm watching.
Mr. Meatball, same question for you, sir. What is on your radar until Thursday's episode?
Yeah, I mean, I think vol could go to 15. I want to see what happens with these Apple calls. We do have a lot of economic data coming out, I suppose. And that is going to be the main things I'm looking for. Are we going to get to 4,500 this week? My bet is yes.
We'll have to wait until Thursday's show to find out. That music means we're done, listeners. But if you need more in your ear holes and you're part of the secret club, don't worry. Get a beverage, hit the old restroom. We'll pump some fun stuff into the live chat back in exactly an hour with the folks who crunch all the numbers for you in the land of crypto, so we can get into all of this and why people think Bitcoin is the most volatile thing on the planet, and a whole bunch more coming up on the Crypto Rundown in just a little bit. But before we go, let's go back around the horn. Let's start with the greasiest of meatballs. Mr. Meatball, I know you're big fans of the Genesis folks out there, but if folks are intrigued, they want to hit you up, they want to talk Apple calls or Gamma Radar or anything else, where should they go? What should they do?
Go to optionpit.com and come and check us out. We have all kinds of products, and I'm putting out awesome content on a daily basis around VIX, around trading. Andrew writes some stuff. Leisha is awesome, and her trading has been off the charts. And you should come check us out.
Check them out. Optionpit.com is the place to go. And Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, if folks want to check you out, where should they go? What should they do?
You can follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW. And if you are looking for a financial advisor that is really into this whole option thing and still doesn't like Bitcoin, check out my website. Would love to have a conversation with anyone, stcharleswealth.com.
You can debate the relative volatility of Bitcoin till the cows come home over there at stcharleswealth.com. And we'll, of course, see you back here later this week for the option block. Before we get there, of course, we got the Crypto Rundown coming up later on today. Tomorrow, got a great pro Q&A. Start getting your questions in now. Mr. Scott Nation's joining us tomorrow. Talk a whole bunch of stuff. Volatility, creator, of course, of all those nation shares and the tail decks and the skew decks. Now kind of vol-Q. That's what they've morphed into, as well as a lot of futures-oriented things. So great one for your Q&As there. Wednesday, of course, all of the educational content you come to know and love. Options Bootcamp, Options Playbook Radio. And then we're back again on Thursday, another episode of the Option Block. We'll see you then.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.